Welcome to the PrimeSpan Podcast, where we talk about aging, mental health, and living well in the years that matters the most. Each week, we cut through the noise to focus on what actually helps you feel clearer, steadier, and more in control as you age. If you're navigating the second half of life or thinking ahead, you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Let me just start with this conversation. I was in the grocery store the other day. I wouldn't name what grocery store that is because I don't want to get us into trouble. And as you all know, I'm a huge supporter of the new federal guideline when it comes to the food pyramid, and it's implementing a huge intake of protein. However, when I was at the meat counter and I'm looking at the prices of the meats lately. Now, I'm not one of those people that buy half a cow or 1/4 of a cow. Rafi buys like half a cow all the time. And I'm like, how do you even eat half a cow? I know Aaron does buy 1/4 of a cow, but I can't do it, you know. Mine even have to be kosher sometimes, so which is the hardest thing. So anyway, so I was in front of this counter and I'm looking at this. It's a pound of a good meat is like $35, $40. It's a pound. And I was thinking about it. The recommendation of eating good protein and all of these things is for someone who is 55-year-old, because I was thinking of our episode already, 55-year-old or above, who could be on fixed income, a good amount of them would probably be in fixed income. And some of our listeners are not on the top tier of living. Some of them are middle class and lower class, fixed income. Some of them are probably alone in their house. So meaning, why would you cook for yourself anymore? And all of this, why would you go through the whole thing of cooking? Anyway, I was thinking about all of these complications about it's. And I come to a reflection where it's a good amount of the boomers have lived through many nutritional phase, which is Atkins diet, high protein, low carb, low fat, gluten free, organic. I mean, these are when you think about it, we don't have information issue, we don't have food issues sometimes. I was thinking about this all the time, and it's a system issue. For someone who's living at the age of 55, when you think about all of these things, the nutrition science keeps on updating it. But when you think about how many people are confused of how do I make a change when a new federal guideline is updated, how am I going to implement that within my life, is something that I would like to bring to this conversation today. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that really are trying to do good, but is overwhelmed with trying to get alignment to what's really the science out there. And so I want to ask you both. I know we talked. We drop a we drop a first line there that not a good amount of us are thinking about food. But what part of the new food guidance feels reassuring to you, if there's such thing? And what part still feels heavy or stressful for you?
I mean, it's the same guideline comes out with sugar, like just don't have sugar and the processed food. So that's has been consistent. It's reassuring that meat, like red meat, is okay to eat and encouraged. I grew up eating majority of red meat, and then I think later in my teen years we started to have integrate more chicken into our diet. But I do I just enjoy eating meat, so that's reassuring for myself. But I the point that you bring up with how costly it could be, especially if you, again, we're looking at older adults here. Does it make sense, for them to be able to meet whatever their daily intake of protein is? And it's a lot, it's doesn't seem like it's a lot, but it is a lot when you're not used to eating that much protein. It's a huge jump. That fat, like the healthy fats, are encouraged, is also kind of nice too.
Mm-hmm.
Allie, what are you thinking, Allie?
I'm thinking about, I think about what you said, Adam, and this new food guide is released. Now, what do you do with it?
Mm-hmm.
So it has the recommendations, but it is overwhelming to think, how can I incorporate all of this into my diet? What is best for me and my family, and how am I going to afford eating all of those things? So I was kind of thinking about that, but I was focused on the food guide pyramid being on real foods.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in our fast-paced world today, we're going with a lot of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the emphasis on eating real foods, real fruits, real vegetables. And I think I love eating bread, but knowing that it's at the bottom. I think just the visual of it is important as a visual learner. Just having that is it's different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other thing I was looking at as I was preparing for this conversation is apparently since 2019 to current, the prices of groceries, and I'm sure a good amount of people knows this, have risen about 30%. 30%. And again, I go back to that a person who's already retired, who's looking at how do I match this? How do I align to this thing? And then so you have financial burden. And then I was thinking about the other thing where Allie, when you guys are cooking, does it feel better when you're cooking for someone?
Yes. I live alone and I don't like cooking for myself.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I grew up with a bigger family and we all had to take turns cooking. So it's been hard. It was a hard adjustment going from cooking for like 6 people to cooking for like 1.
Yeah.
There was a lot of waste in the beginning of when I started, being on my own. But it does, like, it just, because I like to do it because it's like I feel like I'm taking care of them or like gifting them with something I really enjoy doing.
Yes, it's an act of love. It's a performance of love for the most part, and I think that's what it is, right? When you're cooking for someone, and when you're trying to prepare food, it's an act of love. But if you're living alone, most of an older adult, when they reach a certain age, most of the PrimeSpan members are either kids with their own life, or the older adults living on their own. They don't want to cook on their own anymore because there's no audience, there's no one who's going to receive the love anymore. So it changes the whole dynamics. So you have emotional issue. And then I was thinking the last thing, the whole idea of cooking, and this is because I was cooking for Zico the other night and I was chopping these veggies like for 4 hours. It takes, from if you're gonna cook good food, the act of going to the grocery, selecting those groceries, carrying those groceries, chopping, cooking, cleaning, putting it away for your own self.
You really make that sound not such a great. It's not a great experience the way you're describing this.
For us who's younger, it's okay. We're like capable, but for someone who's probably an adult, they're probably eating.
You just are like making me like think about like what are we doing? I feel like we're pushing people to go to the frozen food aisle the way you described that whole process.
Well, that's what the problem is, right? I think, like when I'm reflecting about this, I think it's really not that they don't know what to eat at a certain age. The three of us have worked with older adults for the longest time, and when they come in, what they eat is the same food over and over. But because of that, and I'm like reflecting on this. Think about it.
I think that's why we have to really focus on making the small changes, because the way that you just described it, I'm sure is relatable to so many people. They think about the whole process of going to the market and doing, getting all the groceries, dealing with lines, then paying for it, and then you end up spending more than you probably wanted to. So going through that whole process and thinking about it is very overwhelming. So I think that the way that we break down the various programs and pillars that we have available for people, it really helps turn it into a more feasible, easy to do plan. So just the way you described it, I think there's going to be a lot of people who probably are going through that whole thought process.
I think it's a mindset. You put your mind to it and you said, I'm going to do this. I have to do this. And you did it without, you knew the amount of time it was going to take. When I've tried to do meal prep just for myself, it's a very conscious decision. Okay, what am I going to make? What do I need to get? And what do I need to do to prep? Because this is going to save me time and energy in the long run. And so it's just a very focused decision to make.
I think that's a very valid point. Especially for someone who's concerned about themselves and who's trying to really do things right. How about if a person, I go back to this question because I know I've been dealing with this because I've seen it every time I call a client at PrimeSpan. They ask me, does insurance pay for your program or does it come free all the time? And so I come to this other question where most of the seniors are fixed income. And the other thing is, what happens when medication costs is the first thing you have to be worried about before groceries? What do you choose, food or medication? I think there's a and this is my argument. It's like a thesis I'm defending here that I was thinking the other day. When a advice comes out, this is very common. The advice is a lot easier for younger people. But when you're older, an advice that you have to change suddenly a lifestyle is not as easy anymore. With all of those things that comes up. And so what happens is if you put your shoes in the older adults, if you're the older adult and you cannot follow any of the advice and you know what you need to do, what will happen to you and how would you feel?
I might just give up because I'm overwhelmed and anxious. And if you don't have someone who kind of they're motivating you or not doing it with a friend, or you won't do it. Or I think at that point maybe you're not prioritizing yourself already, and there really has to be something that's nudging you really hard to do it.
That's what I have in mind.
I know I was thinking that I probably feel the same way that Allie was just describing, just really overwhelmed. And it would probably I probably would listen, but then just, move on because I'm like, that's not really feasible for my everyday life. But one of the questions I want to ask, that I wanted to ask a little bit earlier is, we're talking about, the different foods and nutrition. But honestly, like, how many do you eat the same meal every day for like dinner, lunch, breakfast and lunch? And I think that has a lot to play into it too, because if you're eating, the same meal for breakfast, or maybe exchanging one or two ingredients, it might not be that overwhelming to make those changes to match what the new guidelines are. If you it would be more overwhelming, I think, if you were cooking something different for every single meal or every single night.
What you're talking about is a system, something that a person won't feel overwhelmed, probably, instead of over committing, trying to overachieve, and to make it simple, right? I mean, you can when you think about, you bring up a good point, because you can make the changes and not make it complicated. Like an egg or egg and a piece of vegetable is totally fine, I think. I mean, when you think about the nutrition
in the morning, I think that you could make it work. And to your point, your protein source doesn't have to just come from meat, or that more expensive, protein. You absolutely do need it at some point, but it doesn't have to be an everyday source of your protein. There's other things that you can, eat that provide enough.
Allie, what do you have in mind?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking about if you had to start with one meal, if breakfast is your main meal or lunch is your main meal, and you want to just start somewhere, you just have to choose something that you like. Or like you said, if it's the same meal, that kind of makes, I was kind of thinking about the decision fatigue of that. Where do I start? How do I start? And I was kind of thinking about myself as you kind of said that. I don't eat breakfast, which I know is not good. But on the weekend, I eat my toast, and I've been swapping my bread to a different bread with more nuts and grains in it, and having an egg or two with avocado. And I feel like that's a treat, but it's something I've consistently done on the weekend and incorporated. But it took me a while to get there to do that. So when you're talking about eating the same thing, I eat the same thing just because it's easier. or I've tried to incorporate like Greek yogurt with granola to start somewhere, because I never really ate Greek yogurt before.
Adam, what's a healthy meal that you have on repeat? We heard in one of our earlier podcasts what an unhealthy meal looks like.
An unhealthy meal is the 4x4 in In-N-Out, and I'm promoting In-N-Out. Hopefully they sponsor this podcast down the line. But the healthy meal that I have in repeat are three things. We have in the culture I'm married to, we always have herbs, like raw herbs, that is served with your meal, and so on top of the salads, and so that is typically consists of 5 different herbs. You eat that with your meat and everything, and I think that's one of the staple that I always have. I've been doing a overnight oats for Shiva and myself all the time, and so we have that always on repeat. And then if I have a choice, I would always eat avocado every day, because of just all overall health benefits of it. So, and eggs. You were probably thinking of steak is my answer, huh?
No, I wasn't. I was actually thinking back to
back then it's different.
to back then and how you were. I mean, you
In
did
the
have
life, I would
avocado.
have a piece of steak every night,
Yeah.
cauliflower rice, and avocado, and repeat every day.
Mhm.
But now
Yeah.
yeah, it's different right now. I incorporate plant food more.
What about you, Kaz?
Um, my I love breakfast food in general, so I could eat that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But repeat, I would say that my go-to is either like an avocado toast, but lately I've been on the cottage cheese train, and I did not grow up liking cottage cheese. I just started incorporating it a few months ago, and I just love it. So I do sourdough toast with a couple of tablespoons of cottage cheese, and then I'll either put on a soft boiled egg with chili, like the chili crunch from Trader Joe's, or I'll do hot honey and red pepper flakes. And it just is, I don't know if that's dessert or breakfast, but it's so good.
It's a combination of both. Now, Allie, I'm curious, what do you have?
If I had to make a repeat like meal prep, it's a very basic salmon with broccoli and zucchini. Or I've been trying to do more sweet potato. I've tried the ground beef with yogurt and sweet potato and the hot honey drizzle with avocado.
Sounds delicious. It's you see, it's different when you have when you lately my food, I cannot do repeat lately because I have a family now that I have to have variety on the food. I cannot eat the same food over and over. Before, I just eat predictability is the same, I have the same food over and over, and it's different, I have a follow-up question to this. What is the since we're talking about protein, if you will if you have a protein choice outside the typical protein choices that we all are used to, which is pork, beef, chicken, fish, what other protein choice would you endorse?
I would endorse the Greek yogurt because it just is such as a good ratio of protein for like you get a better bang for your buck, I feel like, with the Greek yogurt.
Okay.
I second the Greek yogurt. I was gonna say tofu, but it needs flavor, so you gotta add stuff to it, which makes it not as healthy.
You know, I'm thinking about this conversation that we're having about this options and nutrition and everything, because really at PrimeSpan, right, we're trying to accomplish, Kassandra talked about this a little bit, is we're trying to help people to have a better handle of things like this, like the food science, the guidance, and all of these things. I'm hoping that people are looking at implementing the new guidelines. They don't look at it as a strict guideline, and because some people are perfectionists, achievers, and I've seen that happen. The reality is, when you think about the most important thing when you're getting old, is protein, fiber, and the other thing I always say is, like, what you ate, did that make you feel calmer or did it stress you out? Because if you were stressing out for what you were thinking to eat, then what you ate just didn't matter. That the whole process of metabolic process that you're supposed to feel good with eating, if it stressed you out, and then that whole point of eating to be healthy, it's not going to work out for you. It's not helping. I know we have a lot of things in on the works plans. uh, we have workshops. Can you talk about how people, what are the things we're doing at PrimeSpan, and also how can people find us even further?
Yeah, so our current offerings we have, of course, as Adam shared, our newest venture is being on Apple Podcasts. So take a listen. Currently, this is episode 11, so it's really exciting for us to continue to share our thoughts and opinions in this space. We currently have the guided intro to PrimeSpan right now, which is a offer that if someone's curious, not quite sure how to take a step forward, that is the step we recommend for members to take, just to get a taste of what we're doing at PrimeSpan and figure out what it is that we're doing. We also have our coaching program. Our coaches are finalizing their certification at the moment, and we are looking forward to supporting members with more in-depth conversations, one-on-one coaching lessons from our certified PrimeSpan coaches. And upcoming, we have our Building Cognitive Strength After 55 workshop. And so with that conversation, we are looking to share with members how to maintain and why it's important to maintain cognitive health through the years. So those are some of our current offerings at the moment, and we are looking to expand our community within our Facebook group and in our own PrimeSpan community. So join us on the conversation. And if you ever need more information, we have our website at primespan.life. So, and follow us on all of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and also on LinkedIn to keep up to date with what's going on with PrimeSpan.
Beautiful. Thank you, Allyson. I have one last question for everybody before we go. If you have one piece of advice for our listeners about handling their food, their diet, handling this whole guidelines, especially if you're at 55 and up, especially our primary listeners, what would that be?
One piece of advice, I think one thing we're trying to strive for at PrimeSpan is to take small daily steps. It's really one of the things we're focusing on is not being overwhelmed. And food can be really overwhelming, as it is personally for me. So just trying to make one small change would be my recommendation. Choose one thing to try that week or for 2 weeks and see how it sticks, and make an adjustment to fit what you need at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Cass, what do you have?
My one piece of advice would be to really look at having maybe those repeat meals. It's okay. Like, it doesn't have to be something different every day. I like to variety, but I've been trying to be better about kind of saving time and being a little more efficient on a couple of days out of the week. You know, it doesn't have to be every single day, but a couple days or a couple meals or one meal. Maybe just start with just one meal.
Mm-hmm.
That would be my advice.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And it's similar to actually what Allyson is building on. And I'll follow up what both of you mentioned. I think when you think about aging, you don't need to do everything right to age well when you think about it. And because what happens is we try to do everything right, we get overwhelmed. You just need to practice to live with. You just need to have those practices and to do it calmly and consistently. And that's a better approach to living, than of being overwhelmed with all of those changes. That is really it for this episode, folks. I hope you listen in to our next episode. We have some cool guests coming in, and we have more really interesting topic that we're about to embark. And Kassandra, Allyson, thank you for being here today. Until next time.
Thank you for spending time with us. If today's conversation gave you clarity or steadiness, take that with you. We release new episodes weekly. Follow the PrimeSpan Podcast on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss what's next. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep living well.